Today's talk is titled, Does Morality Come from God? To be delivered by Randy Schwalbe. Randy is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church, Community of Cambria. He is a proud member of UCC. He serves on the worship committee chair, as well as serving on the operations committee and co-managing the AV duties for these services, of which he is handling today. He also creates these awesome slideshows for each service and prepares the WA script that keeps us worship associates honest. I didn't know that was a problem, but in his spare time, Randy leads a trombone quartet, plays the lead trombone in the slow chamber orchestra, and an aside for the May concert, he has been invited to guest conduct the orchestra. For the sixth time, Randy is writing and directing the Follies that will be staged at the Vets Hall over the last 2 weekends in August, which I love the Follies. Randy loves to camp and kayak and hike with his beloved wife, Mary, and their rat terrorist, Master Shifu. Randy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey. A wise woman was camping in the mountains. During a day hike, she found a precious stone in a stream. Later that afternoon, the woman was preparing her dinner when a hungry traveler wandered by. He approached her and asked if she had extra food that he could eat. She invited him to share her dinner. While enjoying the dinner with her, the man saw the precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. Soon the traveler left, rejoicing in his good fortune. He knew the stone was worth enough to give him security for a lifetime. But a few days later, he came back to the campsite to return the stone to the wise woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable the stone is, but I give it back in the hope that you can give me something even more precious than this stone. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me something so precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me this stone." The moral of the story: we can be defined by what we acquire or by what we give freely. And giving is the real treasure. The moral of the story refers to the key lesson or message that the author intends to convey through the narrative, often highlighting a principle or value that can be applied to real life, teaching readers about right and wrong behavior, or how we live ethically. It's essentially the takeaway from the story, the lesson that story teaches about how to behave in the world. Moral comes from the Latin word mores, which translates technically to habits. The moral of a story is supposed to teach you how to be a better person by acquiring good habits. When the word moral is used as an adjective, it means good or ethical. So there it is. Morality is simply acting or behaving in a good, socially accepted manner. Morality includes ethical behavior, integrity, and virtue. Further, a moral compass is a term used in reference to a person's ability to judge what is right and wrong, and then act accordingly. In a more nuanced manner, Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote the UU7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. Moreover, each congregation develops a covenant statement defining with more granularity how to treat each other with respect, dignity, and love. Now, let's look at morality under a microscope. Morality is associated with the good and righteous behavior of an individual. Behavior itself is merely the aggregate of hundreds of micro decisions you make every moment or so while you're conscious. Think about it. Every moment you are making a decision. At this very moment, you are deciding to stay seated and listen to me drone on for about 25 minutes. I mean, you could make a decision right now to stand up and walk right on out. Hold on, I didn't mean that as an order, okay? Every word of this talk came from a decision to use that particular word in a particular place. Okay, another way to look at this endless sequence of decision making is to open a canister holding a spool of film called a movie. While there is only one strip of film, there are approximately 172,000 frames embedded in this 2-hour movie strip. In this analogy, each frame represents a micro decision. When you run the film through the projector, you will see and hear that series of decisions, i.e. images in the film strip, come to life, action, which we call behavior. Yes, each of you is a walking movie. Just an aside, the one exception to this observation of making continuous decisions while conscious is the act of meditating. When it's time to meditate, you should be making a decision to stop making decisions for a minute or an hour. In other words, pause your video. Okay. Now that I have you seen yourselves as busy little bees making thousands of decisions every minute, every single decision can be evaluated with a morality check. Did a series of your decisions lead to an act or utterance that turned out to be unkind, hurtful, or uncharitable? If so, your morality Geiger counter just beeped frantically. The scope arrow is waving frenetically. To get back on track, check your moral compass, or the 7 principles, or the UUCC covenant statement you keep tucked away in your back pocket. So, I have laid out a basic framework of this thing called morality. But now for the big ponderable. Where does morality come from? What is the source of all that is moral? Does morality indeed come from God? Here is a letter written as a blog by a student of the Grand Canyon University, a Christian-based institute of higher learning based in Arizona. Dear faculty, where does morality come from? Signed, Theophilus, I can't say his name. Theophilus, I can't say it. Theophilus. Dear Theophilus, this is the response to the letter. The simple, straightforward answer to your question about the source of morality is this: God is the source of morality. Now, I will offer a bit of an explanation on this truth, but I want to be abundantly clear with you. God is the sole source of the truly good and beautiful in life. Yet this does not mean you will never encounter a perspective on morality that identifies the source of morality outside of God. In fact, I guarantee you will constantly encounter competing visions of the good life rising up from your own heart and the world around you. Your task, more often than not, will be to return constantly to the vision for life sustained and rooted in God alone. Now, the letter goes on for some time, but it never says how or why, nor does it provide any evidence that morality comes from God. In so many words and iterations of phrases, the response to Theo's letter states that morality unquestionably comes from God. So therefore, it would be wrong for you to question this assertion. I'm not sure how this passes for education, but I digress. As you all know, all the God-faith religions sport a set of creeds and commandments, the most famous being the 10 Commandments. Commandments. Biblical scholars have gleaned from the Bible itself, in this way, We cannot have an intimate personal relationship with the Most High in an unconsecrated, sin-ridden form. Religiosity is not righteousness. So God is crying out, as he did to Israel, consecrate yourselves, make ready for that third day. Soon the shofar will sound, and the redeemed righteous remnant will be resurrection to be with Jesus. As the Most High descended on Mount Sinai, the shofar grew louder and louder. God's presence appeared as a consuming fire. God announced his words and inscribed them on the stone tablets. The 10 Commandments were given to Moses, first for Israel, and then to all Gentiles who would believe in Israel's God. Grievously, these commandments have been distorted, partially removed, or even eradicated from the hearts of many professing believers. Many do not even know the 10 Commandments, much less keep all of them. However, they are the standards by which judgments are going to come upon this earth, first to the household of faith. Me again. Have you noticed that in order to get to the 7 commandments that deal with human relations, you must first profess your faith in accepting the first 3? You shall have no gods except God. You shall not take the Lord's name in vain, and you shall keep holy the Lord's day. It's like an incongruous secret code word needed to gain entry into the morality vault, which contains things like honor your mom and dad, avoid killing anyone, stop lying so much, refrain from stealing, resist adultery, and knock off with coveting. If the animal kingdom had a set of commandments, it would go something like this. Thou shalt not kill, except to eat. Thou shalt not covet another's prey or domicile. Thou shalt not steal eggs from someone else's nest. Thou shalt commit adultery if your feathers can outwoo your competition. And thou shalt lie in wait if you are stalking a herd of elk. Okay, so the 10 Commandments and the Bible should be enough to convince you that God is indeed the origin of all that is good and righteous. In other words, the source of morality. Taking a step back to observe human nature, I contend that there is an unwritten understanding, primarily in the Western cultures, that without a single source of a moral code, we humans would descend into utter chaos and debauchery by allowing every person to construct his or her own moral compass. Something akin to the way a heavenly orchestra sounds while warming up before the omnipotent conductor mounts the podium. Not an orderly society until the deific director's arms start to wave. Some would argue that God is merely a manifestation of man's imagination, not an actual bearded dude watching every action of every person 24/7, or someone up there who espouses decent behavior by carving a 10-point doctrine on some stone tablets and decides when it's your time. After all, without God, even a manifestation of man's imagination, how else can we get all of humankind to march to the same ethics drum? Yes, there are atheists out there who admit that without God, we would transcend into our anarchy. They just don't need God personally, I suppose. And I would surmise that almost all of us have at one time or another felt that there was indeed some higher power out there in control, the God gene in action. So, without any proof or circumstantial evidence, we should just accept the inevitable that morality does indeed come from God. QED, amen, namaste. Oh, look, I still have some time left. I have a little bit more to say here. Back in 2007, a Pew Research Center published a series of compelling studies that demonstrated strong implicit associations of atheists with immorality. Wow. Participants intuitively view acts such as serial murder, incest, and necrobestiality as more representative of atheists than of other religions, ethnic, or cultural groups. Unsurprisingly, atheists explicitly disavow this connection, with some even suggesting that atheists are the moral backbone of the nation, taking their civic duties seriously precisely because they don't trust God to save humanity from its follies. One night after a choir rehearsal at the UU Church of Studio City, of which I was the music director for 8 years, I wandered into the fellowship hall where an atheist service had just finished. I was greeted by very friendly people. I should not have been surprised, but sadly, I was. Contrary to popular belief, atheists are not evil Satan worshipers. So I perused the vast array of materials on hand and again was surprised. There were many references, directly and indirectly, to morality and related topics, but nowhere did I find any mention of God. That gave me pause. It suddenly dawned on me that at the tender age of 38, I saw myself as a highly immoral person. I had never violated any of the 4 through 10 commandments, well, none that I know of, and I was down with the 7 principles. But how did I get that way? I was working for the UU Church for less than a year, but I was raised by parents who never pushed any religion on my siblings and me, and up until I was 18, Sunday mornings were reserved for family breakfast. Right, Steve? All those formative years growing up spent with a tacit knowledge of the 10 Commandments and a total lack of awareness of UU principles, well, religion did not construct my moral compass. So how did I become a moral person? However, all through these years and beyond, even as recent as last week, I hear critical comments made by those deep into their Christian Judeo upbringing regarding individuals who have strayed from the law or treated others in a crappy manner. Comments that unabashedly claim that if that person had followed the moral creeds espoused by the church, this person would not know any criminal or miscreant behavior. He wouldn't be in trouble with the law if he was a God-fearing Christian, walking the path straight and narrow. How many of you ever listened to Dr. Laura's advice program on the radio between 1979 and 2010? Anybody? Dr. Laura fans? Yeah. Well, Dr. Laura Schlesinger emerged as one of America's most influential and controversial talk radio personalities. She often asserted that morality is instinctively linked to religious faith, particularly Christianity, and that the church plays a crucial role in upholding moral values. Dr. Laura strongly believed that morality is rooted in religious belief, particularly in God and the teachings of the Bible. She argued that without a religious foundation, people would lack a basis for moral judgment and behavior. She claimed it is simply impossible for people to be moral without religion or God. Get the word? Impossible. Schlesinger saw the church as a vital institution for maintaining and transmitting moral values and standards. She believed that the church has a responsibility to teach and uphold moral principles, and that its influence is essential for a healthy society. Schlesinger often criticized secular or non-religious approaches to morality, suggesting that they are often weak or relativistic. She believed that without a divine source of morality, people would be left to create their own standards, which could lead to chaos and immorality. And once again, that argument is used to promote morality is from God. The Pew Research Center chimed in with the notion that religion as a precondition for morality is widespread and deeply ingrained in our society. The center said that more than half of Americans share Laura Schlesinger's assertion that morality is impossible without the belief in God. Have you noticed by now that no matter how far I push the pendulum to the morality is intrinsic side, it invariably swings back over to the only by the church side? See, that's the God gene forcing its will. One more deep dive, and then I'll cry uncle. If you give even a smidge of consideration that God is a human manifestation, that means morality came with the God package, as opposed to something that was handed down by God herself, the 10 Commandments. That means somebody in the human race more than likely devised the tenets of morality. Yes, it is possible that through the millennium, it was scholars and theologists in the cloak of secrecy who developed the codex of morality. In their eyes, It was an act, some say conspiracy, to preserve the human species, literally. These leaders through the ages inherently knew that if every person was left to his or her own devices, our civilization would have perished centuries ago. But this social construct of divine-based morality would have been dismissed out of hand if it was known that members of the human race indeed authored it. Instead, an all-powerful, omnipotent entity needed to hand it down with assumed responsibility for its content. And you guessed it, it was God. The thinking goes like this. You, as a mere mortal, are unauthorized to question the Word of God, both in wisdom and source. There is no room to question the content of morality as set by God and where God got these ideas in the first place. Golden plates, anybody? It never occurred to me that God had a monopoly on morality until that fateful evening at the Studio City UU. Now I wonder if our civilization can indeed exist with just organically sourced morality. And if so, how will the church feel about this? I will make a bold assertion here. The church, with a capital C, needs morality to be a providence of God in order to maintain its control over us, or at least maintain access to our pocketbooks, a cynic would say. Dostoevsky claimed, if God does not exist, everything is permitted. Echoing this refrain, religious leaders claim that declining moral standards are at least partly attributable to the rise of secularism and the decline of organized religion. In the Socratic dialogue, Euthyphro, penned by Plato, Socrates famously asked whether goodness is loved by the gods because it is good, or whether goodness is good because it is loved by the gods. Although he favored the former proposal, many others have argued that morality is dictated by God and is unthinkable otherwise. Do you remember these words? Quote, "Yet this does not mean you will never encounter a perspective on morality that identifies the source of morality outside of God. In fact, I guarantee you will constantly encounter competing visions of the good life rising up from your own heart and the world around you." Yeah, that was part of the response to Theo's inquiry to the Grand Canyon University about the origins of morality. You can see the church will do whatever it takes to keep God and morality in alignment. And that's okay, let it be and all that. However, this becomes ugly when it is used to promote a bias against non-religious people, or UUs. So I take that back. I encourage you to politely and kindly remind folks who assert the divine origin of morality that you are a living example to the contrary. It is perfectly okay for members of the human race to define morality as it has been done before. After all, where else is it going to come from? Finally, who serves as the arbiter of morality and subsequent sentencing for any infractions? Now, this could serve as another entire sermon or two, but I'll cut to the chase. Stay with me on this. According to the Bible, the Ten Commandments serve as the divine statute of morality. Its source and arbiter is God. The sole sentence is denied access to heaven. Done. According to the secular approach to morality, man's ability to reason enables our species to morph the animal kingdom commandments I shared with you earlier to the last 7 commandments on the tablets given to Moses. Basically, just be nice and kind to each other. The source is the aggregate works produced by theologians, philosophers, historians, renowned psychologists through the ages. This human source of morality often serves as the basis for legal statutes we are obliged to follow. The judicial system passes judgment on a violator and passes one of a gamut of sentences, a simple fine to an extended incarceration to capital punishment. Outside of the legal system, morality is informally established and adjudicated by society at large, usually at the community level. An individual may display amoral behavior but not commit any legal infractions. If this person shows no signs of remorse or willingness to stop being a jerk, the organic sentences will come in the form of social isolation. This person will become a social pariah, like me. So, coming from a perspective of an agnostic and being the sole judge of this grudge match, I'm awarding this decision to the intrinsic nature of morality. Sorry, God. Your 7 commandments are terrific, as are the UU principles and values. In many subtle ways, we learn morality from our community leaders and associates, but most significantly during our early years, we develop our morality from observing and emulating our parents. Thank you.